Welcome back to the Elias Macco Show, second hour of the program. Now, after 15 years in Ottawa, longtime NDP MP Alexandre Boulerice is leaving federal politics to run for Quebec Solidaire in the riding of Gouin, a move that could shake up the province's progressive political landscape. Boulerice has been one of the NDP's most visible voices in Quebec. His decision to jump into provincial politics gives Quebec Solidaire a high-profile candidate in one of its key Montreal strongholds. Alexandre Boulerice now joins us on the line. Monsieur Boulerice, welcome to the program.
Thanks for the invitation.
So let's start off with the NDP side of things. I wonder if there was anything going on in the party that sort of nudged you a bit. You know, I was watching their leadership race. It was not lost on me that French was almost nowhere to be found. You know, there was one quote unquote debate in French, which was, you know, a little bit embarrassing if I looked at the quality of the French that was there. Did you find yourself more and more as being that Quebec voice, more on the outs here? And I wonder if that was involved in your decision.
You know, not really. In fact, you know, I already made a decision that would be my last mandate at the federal level. You know, after 15 years, like you said, you know, 5 wins in Rosemont, Petite-Patrie, I thought I was ready for something else. It was not clear at the beginning it was going to be Quebec Solidaire. So yes, of course, at the same time, I was disappointed with you know, the level of French and the quality in the leadership race. And, you know, I have really good relations with the new leader, Avi Lewis, and my friend Heather McPherson. I'd like to work with her for many years on many files of foreign affairs. But they know that I was a little bit disappointed. But I also know that they have, you know, strong commitments to learn more and do better. And I'm quite confident that Avi and his team, they will reach out to Quebecers. There's a lot of left-wing people in Montreal and Quebec in general. So we need that voice in Parliament in Ottawa. But I decided to be a left-wing voice in other parliament now at the Assemblée nationale.
Yeah, let's talk about those left-wing voices and left-wing people in Montreal and Quebec and the rest of the province here, and why Quebec Solidaire is the right home for you now. You know, the other thing that's not lost on me is, you know, the notion of pushing for an independent Quebec. It doesn't always seem like Quebec Solidaire is at the forefront of that. I know they are officially a sovereignist party, but it never seems like they're really banging the drum on that front. So let's talk about why Quebec Solidaire is the right spot for you to land.
Yeah, for me, it's a little bit like, you know, coming back home. I was a member of the foundation of Quebec Solidaire in 2006. The meeting was at the Université of Montreal, I remember. And, you know, when I was elected with the Orange Wave with Jack Layton in 2011, I had my Quebec Solidaire card in my pocket at the same time. So for me, it's quite natural. It's the left-wing progressive voice in Quebec. And I think that, you know, after 15 years at the federal level, I can see all the advantage to have, you know, a real full state to take decisions and to give you the agility and flexibility to be able to reach your goals and without any federal, provincial, you know, discussions and real in fights that, you know, are not in the interest of public good. But for me, you know, Quebec Solidaire is the voice for, you know, social housing, the environment, public transportation. But you look at the situation in Quebec right now, the schools, the hospitals, there's nothing that is really going well. So I think that I will try to help to fix those public services that need some, you know, some investments.
Now, I'm not the first one to bring this up, but isn't it awkward here? You know, you were in a very federalist. The NDP is all, you know, except for the Bloc, all the federalist parties are federalist here, and you jump to a party that's sovereignist, right? So, like, are you? You know, someone that's a sovereignist? Do you want to see? Do you truly want to see Quebec separate?
You know, I'm first and foremost a Quebecer. You know, my roots, the culture, the music I listen, the movies are from Quebec. I'm very proud of that, and I always defend that. But to work with the NDP was quite easy because of the Sherbrooke Declaration, recognition of the Quebec as a nation, and the fact that the political future of Quebec will be decided by Quebecers in a vote one day, or maybe, and that the NDP, federal NDP, will respect that decision. So for someone like me, it was it was a space that was really easy to work with, and trying for 15 years to work with left-wing people and progressive from all over the Canadian Federation to improve the life of the the middle class and working people in this country, and we achieved a lot of things that I'm very happy and proud to have done with the NDP. But now I'm going to Quebec Solidaire and for a new step in my political career.
We're with Alexandre Boulerice, who announced yesterday he's jumping over to Quebec Solidaire, will run for the party in the next provincial election in the riding of Gouin. Why do you think, you look at the polls, and Quebec Solidaire has seemingly struggled? Many polls in the single digits. I've seen 8% and that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And, I know there was some internal conflict that happened with, Gabriel Nadeau-Dubois, who's been on the show many times, tried to push the party towards a more pragmatist, maybe some would say nudge just a little bit more towards the center, and that didn't work out. Why do you think Quebec Solidaire hasn't been gaining traction of late with voters?
But the first thing is that I'm not joining Quebec Solidaire because of the polls. It's because of my values and political convictions about the common good and to fight poverty and inequalities. The second thing is that I cannot speak for Gabriel, but I'm also a little bit like in the same political alignment. I think that to be pragmatic is a good thing in general in politics or in life. Mm-hmm. You work for the next step that will take you closer to your goal and your target. And everybody does that, when you're a student or you're a worker or you're a professional. So for me, it's a non-brainer, and I will work like that. But I had discussions with Ruba Gazal and the rest of the Quebec Solidaire team, and we are on the same page. So for me, I'm gonna take my experience and energy and try to do my best with Quebec Solidaire to improve the support and elect more Solidaire at the Assemblée Nationale.
Let me just ask you, Quebec Solidaire had to bend some rules for you, right? This riding in Gouin, the candidate that for the next election, it seemed like they wanted a woman or someone non-binary, and they have bent the rules to allow you to run in Gouin. Do you find, how do you feel about the party making exceptions to, something that seems to be pretty near and dear to the core of the party? How do you feel about those exceptions being made for you?
Yeah, one thing has to be really clear. I never asked for anything. So it was their own decision. They knew that I was interested, and it was the internal, status of Quebec Solidaire and the members who took that decision after a debate. It was a vast majority, but not everyone agreed to that, and I was okay with that discussion. But I was not involved at any point. But the fact is, Quebec Solidaire is a feminist party, and the team will have the more women candidates in the next provincial election, the more racialized people or non-binary trans people. I can guarantee you that the goal to have real equality between men and women is at the core of the values of the Quebec Solidaire, but it was their own internal decision.
All right, Mr. Boulerice, we have to leave it there. I'm sure we will talk many more times and lead up to October. Thanks for coming on.
No problem. Thanks.
That is Alexandre Boulerice, now of Quebec Solidaire.
Hello, Canada.
This is Bryan Adams Radio. Hosted by Bryan Adams himself.
We'll play a few of mine, a ton of my favorites, and some must-hear behind-the-scenes stories from the world of rock and roll. One thing about doing rock and roll so long is you end up meeting a lot of the people that you admire. Sometimes you even get to work with them.
It's only love, and that's all. Bryan Adams Radio. I'm coming back to you. Now available on the free iHeartRadio app. Everybody